Hey, Shalom, Makim, Shalom. First and foremost, as always, I would like to give all praise, all honor, and all glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachak Quadash. I would like to give double honors to the apostles, the bishops, and the elders of Great Millstone that taught us this truth and that's for teaching this truth, and much peace, love, and salutation to the elect, beginning with the 144,000, all the way down to the large multitude that believes, and who the Lord will deliver in these last days. To you all I say Shalom. I'm the brother Tazamah from the Great Millstone Dallas camp, coming back today with another lesson, and I pray this lesson will be edifying to the elect. And Shalom to you few Akwath, or you few sisters that believe as well. I want to do a quick lesson on this, this PSYOP, which PSYOP is a short way of saying a psychological operation, all right, that's taking place in regarding to the new scare, that they're going to try to push, which goes into the hantavirus or the rat virus, and we know back in 2020, the whole scenario situation between the whole COVID-19, where they began to lock down pretty much they began to do a world lockdown pretty much, and they made mandates where people had to, wear masks, and, eventually down the line, after people, began losing their jobs, they pushed the whole VAX, which, now it's coming out that, particular side effects and things of that nature regarding the VAX, has it's a long list of side effects, man, which came into being cancers and turbo cancers, blood clots, and people just began to, drop dead, and people are still, dropping dead. I've known people personally that have gone back to the spirit world due to that whole situation, and that was nothing more than just a shock test, all right, that the global elite pushed just to see how people will react and respond to the whole juicy drop pop, all right, if you will. And you had Israelite camps that pushed, all right, the whole getting of the VAX. The ISUPK is one camp, I can think of off the top, as well as IUIC. Now they did retract, the IUIC did retract on the whole, getting of the VAX, but you still pushed your camp, you still pushed your congregation to get it. Okay, which, they're going to have a lot of blood on, they have a lot of blood on their hands, man. And could this be the next big scare? It's definitely soon to be seen, but they're pushing as if this could be the next thing that they can use to justify more draconian laws, all right, and lockdowns. All right, so let's actually open up with a precept real quick. All right, this is Micah chapter 2. All right, this is Micah chapter 2, verse 1. It says, "Woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it, because it is in the power of their hand." You see, when the morning is light, they practice it, or they do it because it's in the power of their hand to do so. All right, and they have all these particular laws, these diseases, that they have, stored up and patented and things of that nature, and they set it up to release it at the right moment. They frame mischief by law because they already have the laws already set up, all right, before they actually implement their enterprise, for lack of better words, man. And this is how you know who the devil is on the planet Earth. All right, this is how you know who Satan is. All right, the ones that are formulating and pushing forth all this evil in the planet. Okay, and like I said, this hantavirus could be the next major quote unquote scare, all right, that they use to implement more fear into the world, to push forth their order. Remember, they use remember the saying, order out of chaos. And in the midst of this going on, you already have prices increasing, gas prices increasing, the prices of goods increasing, due to the whole scenario situation with the Strait of Hormuz, which, the effects really haven't been seen, like that as of yet, but we're starting to gradually see things increase. Gas is, now it's at $4.29 here in Texas, so these things are just going to continue to get worse, you know, and they just, once again, they could use this scenario and situation just to also bring forth more of their draconian laws. Like it says in Revelation, the 13th chapter, they had two horns like a lamb, all right, but he spake as a dragon. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play this little video here.
How did a rat-borne virus on a cruise ship become a global health scare? It was supposed to be the holiday of a lifetime, but while the luxury MV Hondias sailed across the Atlantic, passengers became sick with what was then a mystery virus and eventually died. We now know that the deaths were caused by the hantavirus, a rat-borne disease which is usually spread through their urine, droppings, and saliva. The World Health Organization has now said it believes
and you see at the back of the World Health Organization, all right, you see that in the back you have the rod of Asclepius in the back there. Okay, letting you know where we all at, you know, letting us know where, you know, where we are as we speak. You know, we're in the Greco-Roman Empire all over again. All right, what is the let's do this. What is the rod of Asclepius? I know I'm probably gonna spell this wrong. Yeah, I did. It's all good. All right, it says here, which this is a known, you know, health symbol that's on the back of your ambulance, you know, that's in the hospitals. All right, this goes back to Greece and Rome. All right, it says the rod of Asclepius is an ancient Greek symbol featuring a single serpent entwined around a staff, representing healing, medicine, and the Greek deity Asclepius. See, so ultimately goes back to Greco-Roman gods, you know, which goes back to idolatry. Okay, it says it symbolizes a restoration, rejuvenation, and the wisdom of medical arts, frequently used today by organizations like the World Health Organization and the American Medical Association. Okay, symbolism. The snake represents renewal, shedding skin, and wisdom. See that? While the rod represents the support necessary in healing. All right, so it goes ultimately back to, you know, the serpent. Okay, it says in Greek mythology, Asclepius was the son of Apollo and a renowned healer. And what is Esau trying to do? He's trying to heal you, so-called heal you, which is really killing you, you know, with his so-called medicine. Remember, you know, the Renaissance also goes into the renewal or the revival of, you know, it was a revival of the Roman Empire. You know, but it goes into the revival of the Roman Empire through the pretty much the revival of the image of Rome through its medicine, it's quote unquote its arts, its philosophies, poetry. You know, it says let's see, uses, but yeah, you know, y'all get the point. You know, and it's just and this is what it looks like. And you, like I said, this all goes back to you know, Greco-Roman deities, specifically Greek here. You know, all right. So going back, because you know when I seen that in the video, it just made me just automatically, you see that serpent in the back. You know,
rare strain of the virus on board the ship is meant it can pass from person to person, prompting an international health scare. Symptoms can include fever, vomiting, and diarrhea. Some severe cases develop into breathing difficulties, low blood pressure, and kidney failure. There is no specific treatment for hantavirus, but hospitals can provide symptom-based care and respiratory support. But with several stops along MV Hondias' routes, many are worrying how many passengers have left the ship without knowing they may have the deadly virus. And now, the race is on to track and trace all the people who have come into contact with any of the passengers who have...
The race is on to track and trace all people that could have been in contact. Track and trace. They're using buzzwords and key buzzwords.
Evacuated from the ship, some flying home on commercial flights. There are a total of 8 suspected and confirmed cases linked to the virus on the vessel. On Wednesday, 3 people were evacuated from the ship for treatment in the Netherlands, which included a 56-year-old British man who has been named by the media as ex-police officer Martin Anstreet. He was working as an expedition guide on the ship en route from Ushuaia in Argentina to Cape Verde in Africa. He has told the press he's not doing too bad, but 150 people, 23 of whom are Brits, are still stranded on the ship. Something officials say are strict precautionary measures, and were not allowed to dock at Cape Verde, to which locals said was to protect national public health.
We get the point. All right, so this so-called virus is now it's you know it's traceable through humans, and it's very, you know, it's contagious, you know, and they're looking to track and trace, you know, where these people have gone, and all that, right? Now, one thing that's interesting about this is let me see if I can find it here. Yeah, let's go here. So this is from X. It says hantavirus all's damn, what the hold on a second. Why is this in that's weird. Let me see if I can translate. Let's see if we can translate the page. Okay, here we go. It says hantavirus is a side effect.
I'm Gemini, your AI assistant from Google.
Man,
you can speak naturally with me to get more done. Remember to stay focused on driving safely when we're talking.
Hold on a second. That's crazy. And that's never happened before. But anyways, it says hantavirus is a side effect of the COVID-VAX. The World Health Organization lists the so-called hantavirus as a side effect of the COVID-mRNA-VAX. You see that? So the hantavirus, this is a side effect of those who took the juicy drop pop, right? It says this website contains a database listing all known side effects of all drugs and V's approved for public use. Under possible side effects for the Pfizer BioNTech COVID-19, the World Health Organization lists hantavirus alongside hundreds of other illnesses. They are listed under infections and contagion, and it says as side effects of the Pfizer mRNA-V. So this hantavirus, okay, quote unquote hantavirus, is a side effect. Okay, it's a side effect of the the VAX. And it's a goddamn shame that we got to talk like this, because here it is. They're gonna start, they're gonna bring back that censorship scenario situation back, because a lot of our videos and pages and things of that nature got struck and taken down when that whole information came out in regarding to what happened back in 2020. And then they retracted the information, and people, brothers' pages got pretty much revamped and things of that nature. We was able to get our pages back. But that's not that was just the beginning of it. They're about to turn the censorship up on a whole nother level. You see, but as you see down here, this is side effects of the juicy drop pop, if you will. And you see hantaviral infection or hantavirus pulmonary infection. You see, now this is the new scare. The hantavirus. And then it came out that, you see, actually, is it this one? Where was the one I had? Yeah, it hit Texas. Rat virus panic hits Texas and Virginia as passengers aboard hantavirus cruise return to states. You see, now it's going to be a panic. That it could be in Texas now and Virginia, and it could spread to these various different states. So could this be the next Boogey-Man that's been created, to usher in more draconian laws and usher in more order out of the chaos that they're bringing? Absolutely, it can be. Now, it's soon to be seen what they push out of this, but we already know how this devil works. The scriptures talk about. It says that we are not ignorant of Satan's devices. We're not ignorant of his evil schemes that he does. So, I just want to report on this. I pray this lesson was edifying to the elect of Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushai. Once again, I want to give all praise, all honor, and all glory unto Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushai B'Hashem Rachak. Double honors to the apostles, the bishops, and the elders of Great Millstone that taught us this truth and that's what teaching this truth, and much peace, love, and salutation to the elect. Until next time, Lord willing, I say shalom.